Nita, the Very Chatty Cheetah by Jack Wilson, illustrated by Lauren Nicolopoulos. Nita lived in the quiet village of Cheetah. Elderly animals from elephants to bears lay there. Sunrise to sundown, Nita ran her mouth, and it seemed like her mind would never come across the word drought. Nita had more words than spots on her small body. She was the loudest of them all and could never stop her jaw from flapping and japping. Nita, the Very Chatty Cheetah, bombarded the police station of Cheetah. Officer Blackbear was a super busy man, and to use every second of peace was his plan. Officer Blackbear was on a case on helping an old man. Looking deeply into his files, Nita, the Chatty Cheetah, came in without tame. Nita, the ever so chatty cheetah, why be so loud? Your kind of behavior should not be allowed. Nita took a glance and stood there in a frightening stance. Officer Blackbear, why be so crude? Officer Blackbear looked back. Nita, you need to change your attitude because you are just so rude. Nita went on her merry way and dashed into the library. Mrs. Elephant was organizing her books and kept quiet in her own little nook. Her books covered all things, including spells to human body cells. Quietness was her quest, and her library was simply the best. The Chatty Cheetah talked haughtily to Mrs. Elephant. Nothing seemed different about Nita. Loud and proud she kept herself. How could a cheetah have so much pride in oneself? The chatter shook the shelves and echoed like a sea in the seashells. Nita, the ever so chatty cheetah, why be so loud? Your kind of behavior should not be allowed. Nita took her frightening stance once again. Mrs. Elephant, why be so crude? Mrs. Elephant looked her in the eyes. Nita, you need to change your attitude because you are just so rude. She broke out of the library with a grudge on her back. If Nita knew everyone were to judge her so harshly, then maybe she wouldn't be living and having a panic attack. Needed to use her words smartly. She pondered on the street when she saw Mr. Cat's bakery. The smells coming from his shop were so savory. She glanced inside the business to see a cat displaying great richness. Everything he had for sale seemed so delicious, from pumpkin pie to Scandinavian rye. Nita busted in the door and started her chitty chatter. Her saliva hit the wall and went everywhere with a splatter. Mr. Cat didn't seem to be distressed like everyone else. Mr. Cat loosened his belt and sat comfortably on his stool and played it cool. Nita, the ever so chatty cheetah, come have a seat and talk with me. It is the only thing I ask of you, please. Nita took a mean stance. Mr. Cat, do you think I am sort of a fool? You were just going to yell at me. Mr. Cat stared at Nita with an ever so confused face. Were you causing a fuss? You shouldn't disturb other people's grace. Nita stood in shock and looked around, for which Mr. Cat wasn't yelling at her. Nita walked over and sat with the cat and talked to him. So what is bothering you, Nita? Why the ever so arrogant attitude in our small town of Cheetah? No need to cause embarrassment for our town of Cheetah, Officer Blackbear, or Mrs. Elephant. She gave a deep sigh and tried to let the words fly, but it would seem that she was tongue-tied. Nita's fear seemed to aside, and deep down inside, relief was washing over Nita. She had never been comfortable around the animals of Cheetah as she was with Mr. Cat. Mr. Cat, one question at a time, please. I am just super anxious right now because no one has shown me respect before. All these people coming at me seemed like I was being confined by oppression. I appreciate your frankness wholeheartedly. It might seem perplexed, but I think you can help me. Nita, just relax, and let us create a pact. From now on, you will show respect in every aspect. No matter who it is, it could be a chicken or it could be a giraffe. They all need respect and their own privacy at times. Nobody is trying to confine you at all, and you should make a straight line to Officer Black Bear and Mrs. Elephant and apologize. If you do that, you'll look better in their eyes. With that being said, Nita, the ever so chatty Cheetah, got up and headed out to Mrs. Elephant's library. Everything was a mess from where Nita rattled the shelves. She saw Mrs. Elephant crying and said, "What's wrong, Mrs. Elephant?" Mrs. Elephant got up and looked her in the eyes. "Don't you see what you've done? All my books are destroyed." Nita had the bright idea to help her, and used her speed to snatch up all the books from the ground and stack them on her shelf. "There, Mrs. Elephant, I picked them up and organized them according to which you had them, and I am very, very sorry." Nita dashed out of the library and was spiraling to the police station. Officer Black Bear was standing out with an old man. Nita ran up on the two and gave her a word. "Officer Black Bear, I am sorry for what I did earlier, and I would like to make it up for you for being so disrespectful." Officer Black Bear smiled and looked at Nita. "There is one thing you could do. Mr. Trinker needs help with getting his dog out of the tree. Would you get him his dog?" Nita took off looking in every tree and questioning every bee that she could see. She heard a bark here and a bark there. She finally saw the poor puppy and jumped up the tree and rescued her. She took her and ran all the way to the station to return her to Mr. Trinker. "Thank you so much, Nita. This means the world to me. Is there something I can do?" Nita looked at him and said, "There is one thing. Tell everyone I am no longer Nita the very chatty cheetah. I am Nita the ever so respectful cheetah." Within weeks, everyone knew of Nita's courageous and classified her as redeemed. She was no longer the chatty cheetah. She was considered the most respectful cheetah in all of PETA. There was a large group when Nita arrived home. She never expected this many people to have shown out of nowhere. "Surprise!" They yelled at the top of their lungs, and the ring hung in her ears and gave her a jolt of shock, and she smiled and laughed.